My son asked me to sleep in my own garage for Thanksgiving, while 40 strangers ate in the house my dead wife built with me. He would not even look me in the eye. His wife, Kelsey, smiled like she had already won, and said her parents deserved the master bedroom more than I did. I set my coffee down, looked at both of them, and said, "That works perfectly. I will be in Sedona. You can cook, clean, host, and explain the empty table yourselves. I am your father, not your servant." Their faces went pale. They thought I was finally breaking. They had no idea Thanksgiving had already become the day their perfect lie would collapse for everyone. My name is Harold Bennett. I am 62 years old, retired after 34 years with the Phoenix Fire Department, and I live alone in a one-story stucco house in Mesa, Arizona. Alone is the word people use when they see one chair at the kitchen table. It has never felt completely true to me. Eleanor is still in that house. She is in the bougainvillea climbing the front trellis. In the cream cabinets she painted herself. In the cedar porch chair she rescued from a yard sale and sanded smooth until midnight. She died 5 years ago. And I have not changed a single thing she loved, not because I am frozen in grief, but because some places hold a marriage better than memory can. My neighbor Frank Morales understood that without needing me to explain it. 6 months after the funeral, he started bringing coffee over before sunrise. He never asked if I was lonely. He just leaned on the fence, handed me a cup, and talked about weather, baseball, broken carburetors, anything except pity. That house was my peace. The last quiet place where Eleanor and I still seemed to breathe together. At least, it had been mine. In October of 2022, Grant and Kelsey showed up at my front door with a rented moving truck at the curb. I knew before Grant spoke that this was not a visit. He was 34, a warehouse operations manager for a medical supply company. Built like me through the shoulders but carrying Eleanor's eyes. The one part of him that could still knock the fight out of me. Kelsey stood beside him in white sneakers, holding her phone, already angling the porch light like she was deciding how my house would look on camera. "Dad," Grant said, gripping the strap of his duffel until his knuckles paled. "Our rent jumped again. We can't save for a down payment and keep paying that place. We just need 6 months, that's all." Kelsey nodded. "We'll be invisible, Harold. You won't even know we're here." I should have trusted the tightening in my chest. I had spent 34 years walking into burning buildings, and one thing fire teaches you is that danger announces itself before people admit it. The truck, the timing, the way Kelsey looked past me into the living room instead of at me. Every instinct said close the door. Then Grant's voice cracked, not dramatically, not for show. Just enough to pull me back 20 years to the boy who used to wait on the station steps after school, swinging his legs, hoping I would let him climb into the engine. He looked so much like Eleanor in that moment that refusing him felt like refusing what little of her I had left. 6 months, I said. 6 months. Grant promised. Kelsey smiled too brightly. "We'll respect your space." I stepped aside. They carried their boxes in, then their furniture, then their noise. That night, as the moving truck pulled away, I stood in Eleanor's kitchen and felt the house change temperature around me. For the first 2 months, I almost convinced myself I had been too suspicious. Grant patched a loose gate hinge and helped me clear dead branches from the mesquite out back. Kelsey made dinner twice, though both meals had to sit under ring lights for 10 minutes while she filmed what she called cozy multi-generational living. I smiled, ate cold pasta, and told myself 6 months was survivable. Then, the 3rd month settled in like smoke under a door. Kelsey began sleeping until noon, walking into Eleanor's kitchen barefoot, pouring the coffee I had brewed, and complaining that my internet was too slow for uploads. My towels became theirs, my silence became theirs, my house became a backdrop. Gratitude disappeared first, then manners. One morning, Frank leaned over the fence while I swept bougainvillea petals from the walk. "How long are they staying?" he asked. 6 months, I said. Frank looked at the house, then at me. "Harold, men say 6 months when they already packed for forever." I kept sweeping because deep down, I knew he was right. 6 months became 7, then 9, then nearly 2 years. Grant and Kelsey never packed, never searched, never acted like guests anymore. One cool October morning in 2023, I found a bank statement on Eleanor's kitchen counter. My quiet years account showed a withdrawal I had never authorized, $47,800. I sat down because my knees stopped trusting me. Sunlight crossed the cream cabinets Eleanor had painted and landed on those numbers like evidence at a fire scene. That was when I understood the betrayal had not walked in from outside. It had been living under my roof, eating at my table, and calling me dad every morning without shame. I read the statement 3 times, then called the bank from my bedroom with the door locked. The withdrawal had cleared 6 weeks earlier through the secondary access I had given Grant for household costs, groceries, utility bills, the kind of small things a father lets his son handle because trust is supposed to mean something. The woman on the phone sounded polite and careful. She confirmed the transfer amount, the date, and the authorization path. Every answer landed like another beam falling inside a burning house. At 62, I was not broke, but I was not young enough to rebuild $47,800 like it was loose change. That money was years of overtime, pension planning, skipped vacations, and the last promise I had made to myself never become a burden after Eleanor was gone. I folded the statement and put it inside my shirt pocket. Then I walked out to the yard before anger could make me stupid. Frank was already by the fence with 2 cups of coffee. He took one look at my face and passed mine through without a word. "Bad day?" he asked. "I found something that should not have happened," I said. Frank nodded once. He did not ask for details. We stood there in the dry morning light, drinking coffee beside Eleanor's bougainvillea, while my hands slowly stopped shaking. I had spent my life staying calm in emergencies. Now the emergency was my own son. And I knew panic would only protect him. I needed facts, time, and a plan he could not dodge. 3 days later, the answer to my unasked question rolled into my driveway on 4 brand new tires. I was trimming the bougainvillea when I heard the engine, low and polished. Too expensive for my street. A Lincoln Navigator eased up beside my truck, chrome flashing in the Arizona sun like it wanted witnesses. Grant stepped out first, shoulders high, chin lifted, wearing the same proud look he had worn at 15 when I let him ride in the latter truck during an open house. Kelsey came running from the porch, squealing so loudly a pair of doves scattered off the power line. "Oh my God. Grant. It's perfect." I pulled off my work gloves and walked toward them. "That's a $90,000 vehicle," I said. Grant's smile twitched. 91, actually. But don't worry. Work bonus. The company crushed its quarter. He said it clean, fast, and practiced, too practiced. Men tell the truth with details they don't realize matter. Liars bring rehearsed sentences and hope volume fills the gaps. Grant held my eyes for maybe 3 seconds before looking back at the Navigator. Kelsey slid her hand over the hood like she was touching proof of a life she had earned. "We finally deserve something nice." I nodded once. "Congratulations." Then, I went inside, closed my office door, and pulled out the bank statement. The withdrawal date sat there in black ink. On the kitchen counter, Grant had left a financing folder from the dealership. Down payment received, same week, same amount, same betrayal. That night I sat in my office with the bank statement on one side of the desk and the dealership folder on the other. For 34 years, I had been paid to run toward emergencies. This time I forced myself to stay seated. Calling the police crossed my mind. I even picked up the phone once. But Grant was my son, and there are doors a father opens that never close again. So I called Denise Carver. Denise had handled the title work after Eleanor died, and she spoke the way attorneys do when they know panic is useless. Clean words, no decoration. "How long have they lived there?" she asked. "Almost 2 years. Then you do this properly," she said. "Written notice, 60 days, documented delivery. No changing locks, no shutting off utilities, no threats. If they refuse to leave after the notice expires, we file for eviction. If your paperwork is clean. They have little room to play games. They don't pay rent," I said. "That helps you emotionally," Denise replied. "Legally. The length of residence still matters. We stay boring and precise, boring and precise." I wrote those words on a yellow pad because they sounded like the opposite of revenge. And maybe that was why they felt useful. I asked her about the money. She told me to preserve every statement, every card record, every dealership document, and every message. Do not accuse yet, do not warn them. Let facts age in a folder until they become heavier than excuses. When we hung up, I looked at the calendar. Thanksgiving was 10 weeks away. Kelsey had already been whispering about an enormous family gathering. A perfect holiday performance in my house. I told Denise not to send anything yet. Outside, the Lincoln Navigator sat in the driveway, paint shining under my porch light. Bought with the money I had saved for my quiet years. I stood at the window until my anger cooled into something steadier. Grant and Kelsey thought I was the man who would rush into smoke to save them. This time, I would let the alarm ring. Denise mailed the 60-day notice on October 3rd. Certified delivery. Signature required. Every page copied into a folder thick enough to make excuses feel lightweight. Grant signed for it himself before lunch. The deadline was December 2nd. if he and Kelsey were still in my house after that date. Denise would file the eviction paperwork, and this time there would be no fatherly conversation to soften the edge. I waited to see what my son would do with the truth. He did nothing honest. He folded that letter, hid it somewhere Kelsey would not look, and kept moving through my kitchen like the floor under him belonged there. He drank my coffee, parked the stolen money navigator in my driveway, and kissed his wife good morning while carrying a deadline in his pocket. Every day he stayed silent. I learned something uglier. Grant was not confused. He was not trapped. He knew the consequences were coming. And he planned to let someone else meet them first alone. By the third week of November, Kelsey had turned Thanksgiving into a production. She filmed little previews in my living room, calling it the biggest Bennett Pierce holiday yet, though no Bennett had been consulted, and the only Pierce I knew well enough to dislike was her father, Ronald. She showed her followers folded napkins, mood boards, and a centerpiece plan that involved dried oranges, brass candlesticks, and flowers Eleanor would have called funeral expensive. 4 days before Thanksgiving, I was at the kitchen table oiling the handle of an old carving knife when Kelsey swept in wearing a satin robe, hair clipped up, phone in one hand, and 2 printed pages in the other. She dropped the pages beside my coffee like a captain handing orders to a deckhand. "I need this done by tomorrow afternoon," she said. "I have hair at 10, nails after that, and I still have to shoot the prep content before golden hour." I picked up the list. 2 20-pound turkeys from a butcher in Scottsdale, imported cheeses, prosciutto, organic cranberries, 4 cases of sparkling water, 6 bottles of wine, specialty rolls from a bakery that required pre-orders, 3 kinds of pie, all from different places. At the bottom, she had written, in neat pink ink, "Ask Harold to pick up ice last. Ask Harold," as if I were an errand. I read every line, then set the pages flat. Grant sat in the den 10 feet away, pretending the television had suddenly become fascinating. "You invited them," I said. Kelsey blinked. "Excuse me, you invited 40 people. You chose the menu, you made promises on the internet, so you do the shopping." Her face tightened so quickly it was almost impressive. "It's Thanksgiving, everyone contributes." "I have contributed," I said. "For nearly 2 years," she stared at me, then turned her head sharply. "Grant," my son appeared in the doorway with that tired, cornered look men get when they have surrendered their spine and still want credit for suffering. "Dad," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "Come on, it's just groceries. We're all supposed to help." "It is not groceries," I said. "It is your wife planning a party in my house with my money, my kitchen, my time, and my back." Kelsey laughed once, short and hard. "Wow. So this is who you are now?" "No," I said. "This is who I should have been sooner." I stood, took my coffee, and left the list on the table. Behind me, Kelsey lowered her voice just enough to make sure I still heard it. "He'll cave. He always does. By tomorrow morning, he'll be standing in line with the other old men buying whatever their families forgot." I walked into my office and closed the door. My hands were steady when I called the bank. The secondary card connected to my account, the one Grant had been allowed to use for utilities and household basics, was canceled before the coffee in my mug cooled. The banker asked if the card was lost. "No," I said. It was mistaken for permission. There had been charges on that card I had ignored, because peace had felt cheaper than confrontation. Kelsey's nail appointments, skin treatments, shoes delivered in glossy boxes, lunches she called networking. I had paid for my own disrespect one swipe at a time. When I returned to the kitchen, the shopping list still sat there, untouched. Kelsey and Grant were upstairs arguing behind a closed door. Outside, the grocery stores across Mesa and Phoenix were filling with families who had planned ahead. For the first time in months, I did not feel cruel. I felt clear, and clarity felt like oxygen after smoke. That night, Grant knocked on my bedroom door. He stood in the hallway with both hands in his pockets, staring at the tile instead of me. "Dad, could you take the storage room off the garage while everyone's here?" he asked. "Kelsey's parents are older. The master would be more comfortable for them." I looked past him at the room Eleanor and I had shared for 31 years. Grant never raised his eyes. I said nothing. The next morning, I made one final call. Kelsey woke up the next morning, believing the house still bent when she pushed on it. I heard her moving through the hallway, cabinet doors snapping, heels clicking across the tile. The sharp sighs she made when she wanted someone to notice she was inconvenienced. She had decided my refusal was old man theater. She would go to the store herself, use the secondary card, fill the kitchen, and come home victorious enough to punish me with her silence. I was outside rinsing dust off the porch when she swept past me in sunglasses big enough for a movie star and perfume strong enough to make the air taste sweet. "I'll handle it myself," she said, lifting the shopping list. Since basic family support is too much to ask, I said nothing. That was becoming my favorite answer. She drove off in Grant's old pickup because the Navigator was too new for crowded parking lots, which almost made me laugh. I went inside, poured coffee, and sat at the kitchen table where the canceled card had spent the night doing more work than any argument could. Sprouts in Mesa 2 days before Thanksgiving is not a grocery store. It is a battlefield with carts. Mothers guarding the last cans of pumpkin. Men pretending they know which onions their wives meant. Children crying beside displays of cranberries. Kelsey walked into that chaos convinced chaos was something that happened to other people. I can picture her easily because I had watched her shop before. She did not compare prices. She did not pause over labels unless they looked good on camera. She loaded her cart with imported cheeses, rosemary crackers, organic sweet potatoes, glass bottles of sparkling water, pre-cut vegetables, flowers, bakery rolls, and anything wrapped in paper that looked expensive enough to suggest taste. When one cart filled, she took another. Thanksgiving for 40 people, built on a plastic card connected to a retired fireman's account. At checkout, the cashier scanned everything while the line behind Kelsey grew longer and less patient. The total climbed high enough that any reasonable person would have stopped breathing for a second. Kelsey only smiled and handed over the card like a queen presenting a sealed order. The terminal beeped. The cashier looked at the screen. "I'm sorry, it says declined." Kelsey's smile stayed in place half a second too long. "Run it again." He ran it again. Same beep, same judgment. "Ma'am, it's still declined. Do you have another card?" Her fingers tightened around the counter. There must be a mistake. People behind her shifted. A man coughed. Someone's toddler began singing the alphabet at the worst volume. Kelsey grabbed her phone and called Grant. I know because Grant came down the stairs later with that pale, hunted expression men wear after their wife has publicly assigned them a miracle. "Grant," she hissed into the phone, trying to whisper and failing. "Your father's card isn't working. Fix it." I did not hear his answer, but I know what it was because she went still. "What do you mean you don't have enough?" she snapped. "We have 40 people coming tomorrow. Use your card." A woman 2 places back leaned sideways, studying Kelsey's face. Then recognition lit her up. "Oh my gosh," the woman said, too loudly. "Are you Kelsey Keeps It Classy? I follow you. You're doing that huge Thanksgiving thing." Right. That was the moment Kelsey's real problem arrived. Not the groceries, not the card, the audience. Her face lost color under the makeup. The cashier stood quietly, kind enough not to make it worse and powerless to make it better. The follower had her phone halfway out, smiling with the confused excitement of someone who had not yet realized she was watching a mask come loose in public. Kelsey swallowed. "I need to remove some items." "How many?" the cashier asked. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked at 2 overflowing carts and finally understood what a promise costs when nobody else pays it. "Most of them," she said. The line watched while imported cheese went back. Wine went back. Flowers went back. Half the vegetables. The fancy rolls, the desserts, the sparkling water. The little jars of fig jam she had imagined arranging beside a candle. By the time she paid with her own debit card, she had 4 bags. 4 for 40 people. She came home just after noon. The bags hit the counter hard enough to rattle coffee mugs. Her eyes were red, her jaw clenched, and her voice had lost its polish. The card declined. I was sitting in the living room with a book open in my lap. "Yes. You did that. I deactivated a card attached to my account. You humiliated me." "No," I said, closing the book. "I stopped funding you. Those are different things." For 1 second, fear broke through her anger. Real fear. The kind that shows up when a person finally sees the floor beneath the performance. Then, she turned it and went upstairs. A door slammed. A minute later, through the ceiling, I heard her crying. The refrigerator was nearly empty. Every store in town was picked clean. And tomorrow, 40 people were coming to see the life Kelsey had invented. Grant left before sunrise in the Navigator, which finally started after he jumped the battery with my old cables. I heard the garage door groan open at 5:04, heard the engine cough, then settle, then fade down the street. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan, not pleased, not victorious, just tired in a place deeper than sleep. My boy was driving through the dark trying to save a feast his wife had promised with my money. By 8:40 he was back. The way he shut the driver's door told me everything before his face did. Too hard. but without strength, he came into the kitchen with his shirt untucked, eyes red from exhaustion. Hair flattened on one side. Kelsey rushed in behind him. One curl clipped, one half hanging loose, makeup unfinished. "Well?" she demanded. Grant put both hands on the counter and lowered his head. Costco had nothing. Fry's had frozen turkey breasts, not enough for 40. Sprouts looked like a storm hit it. Whole Foods laughed when I asked about catering. I called 3 restaurants. One said they could do trays, maybe, for triple price. But not before 4. Kelsey's voice cracked. People arrive at 11:30. I know. No, you don't know. My parents are coming. My aunts, my cousins, everyone saw the posts. Grant, he looked up then, finally angry enough to sound like himself. Then maybe you should have had actual food before posting about the table. The silence after that landed hard. Kelsey stared at him like betrayal was only real when it pointed her direction. Grant's mouth tightened. And for 1 second I saw a man who understood exactly how trapped he had let himself become. "We have 4 bags," she whispered. "We have 4 bags," he said. "And no plan." Grant rubbed both hands over his face. No plan. That was when I walked into the kitchen carrying my duffel. 3 shirts, my medications, a phone charger, and Eleanor's small framed photo were packed inside. Kelsey saw the bag first. Her eyes narrowed, then widened as the meaning reached her. "What is that?" she asked. I set it by the door. "My Thanksgiving plans." For once, the room stopped expecting me to rescue it from the smoke. I let it burn. I picked up the duffel and turned toward the back door. Kelsey stepped in front of me so quickly her bare feet slapped the tile. "You are not serious." "I am going to Sedona," I said. "Captain Roy has asked me to spend Thanksgiving at his cabin for 3 years. I finally said yes. Today her voice sharpened. "My family is on the way. There is no food. The guest room is full of boxes. Your Wi-Fi password is not working. And my mother cannot sleep on a sofa." "That sounds like a hosting problem." Grant moved toward me, and the panic in his face almost broke something open in my chest. "Dad, please. I know we messed up. I know it got out of hand. But I don't know what to do." I looked at him. Really looked. The boy who once waited outside the firehouse was gone. And in his place stood a grown man who had stolen from me, lied to his wife, and still expected rescue. "You invited nobody," I said to Kelsey. "You did. You chose the menu, built the fantasy, promised people a holiday in a house you do not own. Then you asked my son to put me in the garage so your parents could sleep in the room where my wife died." Kelsey flinched. "But not from guilt. From being named." I turned to Grant. "You are 34 years old. When a man makes a mess, he stops looking for someone smaller to carry it." He whispered. "I need you." "I know," I said. "That is the problem." The car I had scheduled waited at the curb. I stepped outside with my bag, locked the front door behind me, and walked past the navigator sitting useless in the driveway. The desert air felt cold, clear, and strangely honest against my face that morning. 2. In the side mirror, I saw Grant in the doorway and Kelsey behind him, white-faced and furious. For the first time in 2 years, I did not turn back toward the smoke. I let them stand inside the fire they had built. I was halfway up the highway toward Sedona when my phone buzzed with the first security camera alert. I had installed those cameras after porch thieves hit the neighborhood. 2 on the front, 1 above the garage, 1 watching the driveway. Grant and Kelsey had never asked about them, and I had never volunteered information they did not respect. I pulled into a gas station outside Fountain Hills, parked beneath a cottonwood, and opened the app. The first car arrived at 11:27, then another, then 3 more, then a long silver SUV that stopped crooked across my curb. Doors opened, people spilled out in pressed shirts, heels, football jerseys, children carrying tablets, women carrying pies that would soon become the only actual food in the house. 40 people. Just as Kelsey had promised the internet, she appeared at the front door wearing a rust-colored dress and a smile so tight it looked painful. She lifted both hands like a woman welcoming guests to an estate she owned. Grant stood behind her in a button-down shirt, face gray, jaw locked, already looking like a man searching for exits in his own home. Ronald Pierce arrived first. Kelsey's father had the heavy walk of a man who believed rooms became better when he entered them. He stopped on my walkway, studied the stucco, the porch, Eleanor's bougainvillea, and nodded, as if he were approving a purchase. "Now this is a house," he said. "Kelsey always said you 2 were doing well." Marcia, her mother, followed with a casserole dish and a face built for criticism. She paused by the trellis, pinched 1 dry bloom between 2 fingers, and said something I could read from her lips even without sound. These need work. I almost smiled. It was late November in the desert. Even flowers were allowed to rest. The first crack came 12 minutes later. Grant led a cluster of men toward the garage. No doubt to show off the navigator. He pressed the key fob, the lights flashed. He opened the door with a salesman's sweep of his arm and climbed in. The dashboard lit up. Then flickered. He pressed the ignition, nothing. He pressed again, still nothing. That Lincoln had sat too long. Pampered and useless, like everything else they had borrowed from my life. Uncle Dale. A barrel-chested man in a cardinal's cap. Leaned close to the windshield and laughed hard enough to bend over. Is it supposed to sound expensive while doing nothing? My old Silverado starts every time. And it's uglier than my first divorce. The men laughed. One cousin covered his mouth. Grant sat frozen in the driver's seat, hands on the wheel, staring forward as if dignity might return if he did not move. Kelsey rushed into the garage, clapped twice, and herded everyone back inside. Dinner is almost ready, she announced, bright and brittle. Inside, I knew what waited: 4 grocery bags, 2 bathrooms, 1 unprepared guest room, no turkey, no working Wi-Fi, and no old man willing to absorb the blame. My phone buzzed. A text from Grant: Dad, please, just send the Wi-Fi password, the kids are losing it. Kelsey is freaking out. I looked through my windshield at the rising red road ahead. Then I set the phone face down on the passenger seat and pulled back onto the highway. Behind me, the perfect holiday was beginning to crack open. Ahead of me, the desert widened, quiet and clean. For the first time, I understood that peace did not require explaining myself. Sometimes the strongest thing a man can do is remove his hands from a collapsing wall and let everyone see who built it with their own lies. My phone rang at 3:17 in the afternoon. I was sitting on Captain Roy's porch in Sedona, wrapped in a canvas jacket, watching red light move across the rocks while smoke from his cedar fire drifted through the cold air. Eleanor had wanted to see that view. For once, I let myself sit there without apologizing for being alive. Kelsey's name filled the screen. I let it ring twice. When I answered, she did not say hello. You did this on purpose. Behind her voice, I heard the room, not clearly, but enough: children whining, adults murmuring, chairs scraping, the heavy silence of people who had realized dinner was not almost ready. You set me up, she said. You walked out so I would be humiliated in front of my entire family. I kept my voice low. Did I invite them? Kelsey. She breathed hard into the phone. Did I promise them dinner? Did I choose the menu? Did I offer my bedroom to your parents and agree to sleep beside paint cans in my garage? That is not fair. No, I said. What was not fair was living in my house for almost 2 years while treating me like hired help. Grant came on the line then. Voice cracked and desperate. Dad, come on. We are still family. You always taught me family shows up. That hurt because it was true. I had taught him that. I had just failed to teach him that showing up did not mean handing someone a shovel every time they dug their own hole. I showed up. I said, I gave you both a roof. No rent, no lease, electricity, water, internet, groceries, and more patience than either of you earned. Today is the first time you have had to carry a promise you made yourselves. Do not call that abandonment. The background changed. Someone must have realized the call was on speaker, because the room went still enough for me to hear a fork hit a plate. Uncle Dale's voice cut through first. Hold on. Kelsey told us this place was basically theirs. Then, a woman I recognized as Tanya said. She said her father-in-law wanted to host. She said he insisted. Marcia's voice followed, thinner now. Kelsey, what did you tell us? Kelsey made a small sound. Not a word, not a cry. Just air escaping a collapsing performance. Ronald spoke last, and the room obeyed him immediately. Kelsey, he said, slow and hard. Look me in the eye and tell me whose house we are standing in. There was no answer. I could picture it: Kelsey in her rust dress, Grant pale beside her, 40 people staring at the walls she had borrowed, the furniture she had displayed, the life she had sold as hers. Grant whispered, Dad, please. I looked out at the Sedona cliffs glowing like coals and thought of every fire I had entered, every door I had kicked open, every stranger I had carried out because saving people was the job. But this was not a rescue. This was a reckoning. Your guests, I said. Your responsibility. I am on vacation. Then, I ended the call. The quiet that followed was so clean it almost hurt. For the first time in years, I did not feel like a cruel father. I felt like a man standing outside smoke. Roy stepped onto the porch holding 2 plates. Steaks are ready, he said. I put the phone face down and looked at the darkening hills. 3 hours south, the lie was burning itself down without me. I returned to Mesa on the morning of November 30th. The highway south from Sedona was quiet. The kind of quiet that settles after a holiday has already taken everything it came for. I had spent 2 nights at Roy's cabin, eaten steak instead of turkey, slept without hearing Kelsey's phone videos through the wall, and woken before sunrise with no one asking me to fix a problem they had created. 2 messages had come in after Thanksgiving. One from Tanya, "I'm sorry, I didn't know she lied about the house." One from Ronald Pierce, "Short and stiff, I should have asked more questions before bringing my family into your home." I respected that more than I expected to. When I turned onto my street, the moving truck was already in my driveway. Grant stood at the open back of it, holding a cardboard box against his chest. He looked smaller than he had 3 days earlier. Gray around the eyes, unshaven. His shirt wrinkled like he had slept in it. For a second, I saw the little boy who used to wait outside the firehouse with a plastic helmet crooked on his head. Then I saw the man who had signed a legal notice and hidden it. "Dad," he said. "Grant," he swallowed. "I sold the Navigator." I stopped beside my truck. "Private sale," he continued. "Not for what we owed, but enough. I wired $38,000 back into your account this morning. Denise should be able to verify it. The rest went to a deposit on an apartment in Tempe." He tried to laugh, but it broke before it became anything. "3rd floor, no elevator." Kelsey cried for an hour when she saw the kitchen. I did not answer. He needed silence more than comfort. Grant set the box down on the tailgate and rubbed both hands over his face. "I know what I did. I know I stole from you. I know I let her treat your house like it was ours and let myself pretend that if I didn't say things out loud, they weren't real." His voice cracked. "I'm not asking you to forget it. I'm not asking to stay. I just needed to say I'm sorry without using it like a key." That landed harder than I wanted it to. A father can love a son and still refuse to be his shelter from consequence. Those 2 truths can stand in the same driveway and both be real. I stepped forward and put my hand on his shoulder. This time, he did not flinch. He closed his eyes. Just for a second. Like the weight of my hand was the last safe thing left from childhood. "I love you," I said. "But you are leaving." He nodded. "I know." And for once, he meant it before the court had to tell him. Inside, the house looked tired but mine again. The counters were wiped down. The guest towels had been shoved into a laundry basket, and someone had patched the scuff on the hallway wall badly enough that Eleanor would have laughed. Still, the noise was gone. Sunlight fell through the kitchen window and touched the cream cabinets in the same quiet places it used to. Frank appeared at the fence before I finished unlocking the back door, 2 coffees in hand. "Almost over?" he asked. "Almost," I said. Grant carried the last boxes to the truck. Kelsey came down the porch steps with a duffel over one shoulder. Eyes swollen. Mouth hard. She did not look at me. She climbed into the passenger seat and pressed her forehead against the glass like the world had wronged her. Grant closed the truck door, looked back once, and raised his hand. I raised mine. When the truck turned the corner, Frank asked, "You okay?" I breathed in the quiet house. "Better than I've been in 2 years. That evening, I took a turkey breast from the freezer, the small one I had bought before all the noise began, and roasted it with rosemary, garlic, and butter the way Eleanor used to when it was just the 2 of us. I opened the kitchen window and let December air move through the house. The silence did not feel empty anymore. It felt earned. I set one plate at the table, poured water into Eleanor's blue glass, then changed my mind and used my own. Healing, I learned, is not pretending someone is still there. It is admitting you are still here. During dinner, Grant texted, "Found a grocery store near the apartment. Cooking chicken tonight. Real food, just wanted you to know." I read it twice and set the phone down without answering. Not punishment. Space. After the dishes, I carried decaf coffee to Eleanor's porch chair. The bougainvillea was bare, but the roots were alive. Some people ask if I regret what I did. I do not. I gave Grant time, money, shelter, patience, and every soft landing a father can offer. What I should have given him sooner was a consequence. That is the part men like me learn late. We mistake endurance for love. We call silence strength until our own homes become places where everyone else is comfortable and we are expected to disappear. Quiet revenge is not screaming, breaking, exposing, or destroying. It is closing the account. It is taking your hands off the wheel of somebody else's wreck. It is saying, "I love you, but I will not fund my own disrespect anymore." When I stopped carrying Grant and Kelsey's life, I got mine back. The house breathed again. Eleanor's chair waited on the porch. The roots under the bougainvillea kept doing their hidden work. That is family justice to me, dignity without apology. If this story touched something you have lived through, comment below. Share it with someone who needs a boundary. Subscribe for more. And remember, some details are fictional, but the lesson is painfully real for any family that confuses kindness with permission to exploit.